I hear a lot of that anxiety in students that I'm working with, and I hear it, even sometimes through my own daughter in terms of some of the social stresses of high school. And the third one that they worry about is college. That was the third biggest concern and stress for teens. Now, for parents, that's kind of similar. And what keeps parents awake at night in terms of college are also three key things. One is around which college. So we all know how many colleges are there out there? Thousands, right? Thousands. So it's actually over 3,000 of them. So which college is a big question. The second one is around how to get in, because most of us know that things have changed in the last 10 or more years, and so what used to be some years ago doesn't apply today necessarily in terms of how they'll get in. And the third thing that I like to talk about is what to pay. So it's not so much as how to pay it, like whether or not you are going to be saving in a 529 plan or anything like that, but it's around what to pay, because only 20% of parents nationally are actually paying full price. And so when we see those big numbers around college being, $70,000, $80,000 a year, only 20% of families nationally are paying that. The other 80% are getting some monies. And we can talk, if you have questions about that, how to avoid being part of that 20%. There are some particular reasons why, families are paying in full, and it's highly likely that you won't be one of those families, okay? So I love this cartoon here, because one of the things I see that parents do when they are really stressing about college and school for their kids is they start to do it for them. And I'm definitely going to touch on that as we go through this presentation. So I love this quote from Dr. Seuss. It says that sometimes the questions are complicated and the answers are simple. Don't you love that? It's just eloquent. But when it comes to college admissions, this is really turned on its head, because the questions are simple, but the answers are complicated in terms of how you get there. And so here's what makes those answers so complicated. One is the cost of college. And so we've been hearing a lot about how tuition is rising and everything else. But one of the things that I would say to that, this question here is around the cost of a college choice. What is the cost of a wrong college choice? Thousands? Yeah, it can be. It can be. What's a more specific number? Does anybody have a number for this?
Are you saying like the full 4 years, or like?
If you make a wrong choice, you're usually going to leave after that first year, and that's how the state of Ohio calculates it. And so,
10,000.
actually, it's closer to 50. It's around 45 to 50,000 in Ohio if you make a wrong college choice.
A lot less.
Yeah. The second thing, as I mentioned earlier, is around the choices, the fact that there are so many different colleges to choose from. Because what ends up happening is that for most of us, we know like maybe a dozen colleges that we can name. Usually they're local or they're big brand names, but there's so many more out there that we are not necessarily exposed to or really think about in terms of whether or not it's a place that's a good fit for our own kid. Now, the third thing is the competition. And so if you've heard anything in the news around the competition for getting into college, that has also increased over the years. And one of the things that makes that, particularly important to know in terms of a statistic is around this. So how many number of years do you think for math do students need for Ohio State? What's usually the number of years of math that students have when they apply to Ohio State? How, 3? 4. Okay. The number is actually 5. And so, years ago, people would say, Ohio State is my safety school. And I just cringe when they say that. I'm just like, no, Ohio State is not a safety school by any stretch of the imagination. And if it takes 5 years of math to really have a good chance of getting in, that means you need to, yeah, exactly. And I'm going to talk about that too as we get more into this. The other thing that's driving this competition, I'll be frank in admitting, this is one of my students from India, and she's actually now a freshman at Ohio State. There is a lot more international students who are applying to many of our great universities here in the U.S. That number did go down a bit this year with the political climate in the U.S., but still it's a significant number, and it makes a difference in terms of when your own teens are applying to colleges. And in often cases, it is to your public universities where they, when they apply to a public university, I can tell you now, when she applied to Ohio State, they did not offer her any money. So she's paying in full. And so that means that for your son or daughter, who they may have to offer some scholarship money to, that can make it a bit more competitive for getting in, because international students will pay in full to go. Okay? She did get money from another university, and it was a really good offer, but what Ohio State had to offer far surpassed what the other school could offer from a placement standpoint of view. And so when you're thinking about college, certainly it's not just thinking about just what those 4 years will offer, but also what makes a difference beyond those 4 years. So the complexity of the process is also increased over the years. And as I mentioned before, just in terms of the number of hours it takes for parents to help, that's, what number was that? 300, right? 300. And so there's a lot more parts, moving parts, to the whole college admissions process, which I'll go through with you as we talk in this presentation. And Marquita is nodding her head with having a senior now. One of the things that it has in your handout that it asks about is thinking about just kind of, if you estimate what an hour of your time is worth, then let's say it's $100 an hour, then doing the, going through the process of helping your team costs you $30,000. $30,000 to go through that process of helping. What was I going to say about this one? I think it was something regarding this young man not wanting to hear what his mom has to say. But I think that all of us can identify with that. And I can tell you lots of stories in terms of